Hey there, friends. Today, we're diving into a story that's as dark as it is shocking. It's about a man named Richard Speck, who, in one horrifying night in the 1960s, took the lives of 8 young nurses in Chicago.
8 young student nurses lost their lives on the night of July 14, 1966. Mass murderer Richard Speck's name would become infamous, but the few surviving family members of the nurses want their lives to be celebrated. Imaginable horror back in 1966. 8 young student nurses, women who wanted to help people, take care of people, all brutally murdered. One newcomer to the U.S. here to study nursing survived. Corazon Amurao hid under a bed.
It's a chilling tale, but it's important to remember, reflect, and understand how such events shape our history. So, let's go back in time to understand who Richard Speck was and what happened that infamous night. Richard Speck was born on December 6, 1941, in Kirkwood, Illinois. His early life was far from stable. His father passed away when Richard was just 6 years old, and soon after, his mother remarried. This new stepfather was not the kindest of men, and Richard's home life became tumultuous. Growing up, Speck struggled in school and eventually dropped out in the 9th grade. His teenage years were marked by petty crimes, arrests, and a growing rap sheet. By the early 1960s, Richard Speck had developed a reputation as a troublemaker. He worked odd jobs, often getting into trouble with the law. Despite his run-ins with the police, he managed to avoid serious consequences, which only emboldened him further. Fast forward to July 1966. Speck, now 24 years old, had drifted to Chicago. On the night of July 13th, something snapped. He broke into a townhouse in the south side of Chicago, which was home to several young student nurses. Armed with a knife, Speck systematically killed 8 of the 9 women present that night. The details of what happened are chilling. Speck corralled the women into a room, tied them up, and killed them one by one. Corazon Amurao.
The mere name may send chills down your spine. 30 years ago, he murdered 8 young student nurses in their Chicago townhouse. Tonight, in part 3 of Richard Speck Speaks, Bill Curtis shows us how a massive manhunt put Speck behind bars. Bill?
To those who were around Leicester in 1966, the hunt for Richard Speck is remembered like Pearl Harbor or the Kennedy assassination, an unforgettable moment in time. People stayed home. They were afraid to go outside. It was...
You'll know in your own mind, because the voice, the way he walks, the way he holds his hand,
But they will attack me.
Pardon?
They will attack me.
Oh, no.
The only survivor, managed to hide under a bed and escaped Speck's notice. Her testimony would later be crucial in bringing him to justice. The news of the murders sent shockwaves throughout the country. People were horrified. How could something so brutal happen? The city of Chicago was on edge, and the police launched one of the largest manhunts in their history. For days, Speck remained at large, blending into the city. But his time on the run was short-lived. On July 17, 1966, Speck was identified by a drifter who recognized his distinctive Born to Raise Hell tattoo from a sketch circulated by the police. He was arrested shortly after and charged with the murders. At his trial, Speck's defense tried to argue that he was insane. However, the evidence against him was overwhelming. The jury found him guilty, and he was sentenced to death.
Sufficient to be classified as insane under Illinois law, or was he a sociopath, which would be a condition but would not qualify as insanity?
However, in 1972, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the death penalty, as it was being applied, was unconstitutional. Speck's sentence was commuted to life in prison. While in prison, Richard Speck became a figure of infamy. He gave interviews, during which he showed no remorse for his crimes. He even bragged about the murders, making chilling statements that only added to his notorious legacy. One of the most disturbing aspects of Speck's time in prison was a videotape that surfaced in the 1990s. In it, Speck was seen doing drugs, engaging in sexual acts, and boasting about how easy life in prison was. This tape caused outrage and led to changes in how prisons were monitored and controlled.
The centerpiece of all this is that tape. You said it was made 3 years before he died. Do you think he ever meant it to be made public as you are now?
I don't think so. They were making a pornographic tape inside Stateville Prison. It came to us out of the blue, really from a lawyer. It had been given in payment for a fee. I think he was doing it as a favor to one of the people who supplied him.
Richard Speck died of a heart attack on December 5, 1991, just a day before his 50th birthday. He left behind a legacy of horror and questions about how someone could commit such heinous acts. So, what can we take away from this dark chapter in history? First, it's a stark reminder of the importance of mental health awareness and the need for a supportive community. Speck's life was one of neglect and abuse, which doesn't excuse his actions, but may offer some context into how he became who he was.
Psychotic, sufficient to be classified as insane under Illinois law, or was he a sociopath, which would be a condition but would not qualify as insanity?
Second, it's a call to action for improved safety measures. After the Speck murders, there were significant changes in how hospitals and training facilities secured their premises. It also highlighted the need for better communication between law enforcement agencies. Finally, it's a sobering reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. Corazon Amureo, the lone survivor, showed incredible bravery, not only in surviving the ordeal, but also in facing Speck in court and helping to bring him to justice. Her courage is a beacon of hope in an otherwise dark story. As we wrap up, it's important to remember the victims: Gloria Davy, Patricia Matusek, Nina Schmale, Pamela Wilkening, Suzanne Ferris, Mary and Jordan, Marlita Gargullo, and Valentina Passion. They were young women with dreams and aspirations, and their lives were tragically cut short.
Around her neck was so tight that I had a hard time getting my finger between the ligature and her throat where I could pull it off and I could cut it off. It was bound so tight.
Thank you for taking the time to learn about this significant, though grim, piece of history. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more content. And as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. How do stories like this impact you? What lessons do you think we can learn? Until next time, stay safe and take care.